Coming up on today's Golden State Warriors today, could the Dubs trade for Lauri Markkanen? Also, we're going to touch on a Kevin Durant trade proposal. Could he come back to the Warriors during what is going to be a massive offseason for the Dubs? First, make sure you hit that subscribe button here for year-round coverage of the Warriors. We're closing in on 63,000 subscribers, and as I noted, this is a pivotal offseason for Golden State. A lot of roster decisions, a lot of free agency movement. We're going to have you covered every step of the way, and you don't want to miss our content, so lock us in right now. All right, let's do this thing. Happy Tuesday to everybody. Hope you all had a great Memorial Day weekend. I'm Chase Sr. This is Golden State Warriors Today, and a lot of you know my face. I helped build this channel from 13,000 subscribers to 60,000 subscribers. Allie Barefoot has done a tremendous job talking Dubs, but she's also going to do some other things here at Chat Sports because she's been killing it, and because this offseason is such a big one for Golden State. Hopping back in the saddle to talk some Dubs, and I'm happy to be back. Hit that thumbs up icon, like the video if you're happy to see me here back on the channel. Let's talk about Lauri Markkanen to Golden State. Bleacher Report proposing an ambitious trade, and that includes Markkanen, really good player, to the Warriors here, which could move the needle and hopefully get the Dubs back in championship contention. Here's what Bleacher Report had to say about this potential move. Few singular acquisitions can propel the Dubs back to dynastic heights. Markkanen is not one of them, but he's a more palatable option than older stars such as Kevin Durant or Paul George, who increase Golden State's immediate title chances at the gargantuan expense of the future. So a lot of big words there, but we're going to simplify it, and I'm going to pass along my thoughts, and you'll hear from producer Smitty as well. My take, he's right, that Lauri Markkanen alone doesn't make you a championship contender. But what does it do? Let's focus in and hone in on that. He makes your roster more competitive. And what has been the problem for the Golden State Warriors the last 2 years since winning the NBA championship? The fourth under Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. Their roster has had holes. Their roster has not been competitive enough. And now you have Steph Curry starting to age a little bit, still playing at an elite level. There is pressure here on Mike Dunleavy as well as Steve Kerr, this front office and this organization, to not spoil and waste the remaining great years of Steph Curry and to improve this team. And Lauri Markkanen can improve this team drastically. That has to be the sole focus for this organization this offseason. You look at what Markkanen has done in the last 2 years. This is a really good player who's an all-star caliber player who can really score at all three levels, as evidenced by the well-rounded numbers. 2 years ago, he really finally broke out for the first time. I thought it was a great move for the Jazz to bring him in, and he emerged as a blossoming borderline superstar in this league. 25.5 points per, 8.5 rebounds, less than 2 dimes. He's not going to do much as far as creating shots for others, but what he is going to do is be a very efficient offensive player, and this could help out Steph Curry a lot. 50% from the deck, 39% from downtown. This past year, numbers went down slightly as far as the points per game and the rebounds, but what remains consistent? His ability to put the biscuit in the basket on a consistent basis, and that Warriors have had too many scoring droughts here, especially in these non-Steph Curry minutes, where Lauri Markkanen can help you in that regard. 48% from the floor, and then nearly 40% with volume from three-point range. And you flip the page to this list of elite players to average 23-plus points per game, shoot 55% on their twos, and 39% on their threes. Kevin Durant's done it 5 times. Our true superstar Steph Curry 4 times. Kawhi Leonard 3 times. Karl Anthony Towns has done it 3. LeBron James twice. And Lauri Markkanen, ladies and gentlemen, with the numbers that we just broke down, has also done it twice in back-to-back years. That is the type of player that the Warriors could bring in here. And you think about some of the player capital and draft capital that they have to get it done, it's certainly intriguing here. So be Mike Dunleavy Jr., hop in his shoes, and run this Warriors front office for us. Should the Dubs make a trade for Lauri Markkanen? Y for yes or N for no? Producer Smitty's trade idea is this one here to my right, where the Warriors get this really good player in Lauri Markkanen. The Jazz receive Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Kevon Looney, a little bit of salary cap filler there. And in addition to two really good young players in Kuminga and Moody, you're going to have to include some draft capital. And I get it. Some people are going to say, Chase, this will screw us for the future. I'm not really worried about what's going to happen with this team in 5 years as compared to what I want to accomplish in the next couple. And that's in a very competitive Western Conference. I'm trying to still win a championship while Steph Curry is playing well. So with that, we bring in producer Smitty. Your take on this move for Golden State, what it would do and the ramifications of it.
I mean, no doubt makes your offense more formidable here. You get a bona fide second scorer who can create for himself and shoot off the catch. But you look at his contract right now, it is very team-friendly, but he is a free agent in 2025, so you're going to have to pay him. And what if he doesn't like Golden State? Well, what if it somehow doesn't work out? I have a feeling it would, due to how spread out this offense would be, how easy it would be for Lauri Markkanen to get looks with the gravity that Steph Curry generates. It's a high risk, but it's also a high reward that could not only give you a player to compete now for Steph Curry's last years of his prime and the most effective basketball player that he will be as he gets closer to 40 years old. You also have somebody who can kind of take you into that next generation. Maybe he won't be a number one option on a championship team, but he's going to be productive enough to usher in the next era of Golden State Warriors basketball, and I think he would be a huge help offensively for a team like you said, Chase, who went through a ton of droughts this past season.
Yeah, the plus is that you have him for 2024, 2025 at a very affordable number, as you mentioned, $18 million. You, of course, worry about him moving on, which would then be a waste of a year as far as giving up a Kuminga, Moody, and a couple of draft picks. But what has Golden State become? Golden State has become a destination and a hub where a lot of players like to go, not only because of the reasons that you get to play alongside future Hall of Famers in Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Steph Curry, and we'll see what happens with Klay, but they treat their players right, and Lauri Markkanen can help usher you into that next era while being competitive right now. Coming up next, speaking of eras, we're going to go back to a previous Warriors era and talk about the future era and whether or not it makes sense to bring back Kevin Durant. Stay tuned for that. But first, today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you're looking to get into daily fantasy sports, Prize Picks is where it's at. The largest independently run daily fantasy sports app in North America. And you can get a $100 deposit match at prizepicks.com/CLNS. I promise you, Prize Picks makes daily fantasy easy. Where you pick two or more players, you choose more or less on their projected stats, and you can win up to 25 times your money. And within the app, you can win big-time money and withdraw your winnings. It's absolutely sensational. And our selections for Game 4 of Mavs Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals as Dallas looks to punch their ticket to the NBA Finals to take on the awaiting Boston Celtics. Karl Anthony Towns has to have a big game, right? We don't think he is. Less than 31 points, rebounds, and dimes. Naz Reid, he's been balling. 12.5 points. Let's take the more on that. And then Mike Yastrzemski, Yaz, more than a half total base. Those are our picks. Thanks to our friends at Prize Picks. You can tail us. You can put together your own selections. And if you do that, let us know what you're going with down in the comment section. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. $100 deposit match awaits when you use that link down below. Should the Warriors run it back with KD? Rumors continue to swirl about the possibility of KD reuniting with Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. KD was said to have not enjoyed his time with the Phoenix Suns this past year. He, of course, was a trade deadline acquisition 2 seasons ago. And there's just some chatter with the Warriors trying to maximize the remaining great years of Steph Curry and KD wanting to go back to a team that could win an NBA championship, given the fallout of Phoenix, that maybe KD could come back to the Warriors this time, not by free agency, but via a trade. And I saw this trade from Bleacher Report where the Warriors get KD, and this is obviously a trade that would send a ripple effect across the entire NBA. Suns receive Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, Kevon Looney, you get Houston, and then a couple of first-round picks in there, 2025 first, 2026 and 2028 firsts. Of note, NBA teams cannot send their own first-round selections in back-to-back years. That's why there's always a gap. And then the Magic receive Chris Paul, Gary Payton II, and by being the third team thrown into the mix, they also get a 2025 first-round pick via Denver as well. I know that. When you look at the screen there, when you look at that trade, it's a lot, and it is certainly wild. But you think about the possibilities. You think about the relationship that KD has with Steph Curry. Has he been able to patch things up with Draymond Green? And there is pressure on this Warriors team to try to, again, not waste this great era, have it end in a sour fashion. And while Steph Curry is just shooting the lights out, still efficient, can still be the number one on a championship team, why are you going to settle for just being average? Because if you're average in the NBA, you are going to go nowhere. And what the Warriors would lose here, if they do make this trade, it would certainly overhaul the roster to a certain degree. The Chris Paul experiment, I'd chalk it up as if it didn't work out. Why? Because the Warriors didn't even make the damn playoffs. Jonathan Kuminga, I think he's an ascending, very, very good player in this league. I love what Brandon Podziemski was able to do. As soon as Steve Kerr started to trust him, he started to play good basketball on both ends of the floor. Kevon Looney, thank you so much for being the ultimate glue guy on those championship teams, but your best days are behind you, and now the Warriors have your replacement in Trace Jackson Davis. Gary Payton II, two-way player. He can shoot the three, defend at a high level, but his career has been marred by injuries the last couple of years. And yeah, you're going to have to sacrifice some draft capital if you want a trade like this to come to fruition. So my take on this one, it's an even bigger risk than trading for Lauri Markkanen. Kevin Durant was so efficient last year. How good his numbers were kind of fell under the radar a little bit. But he's 36 years old. There's no guarantee that he'll re-sign or be worth gutting the roster as well as the future. What's crazy, though, is that KD is still hooping. You get worried about the lack of games played because as he's gotten older, not necessarily the numbers have gone down, but the injuries have gone up. 2020, 2021, 35 games played. Season after that, 55 games played. And then 47 games played, split between Brooklyn and Phoenix 2 years ago. But if you're looking to go glass half full here, this past season, 74 games notched, 27 points per game, 52% from the field, 41% from three-point range, and that's with KD openly saying, I wasn't comfortable in that offense. Well then, why'd you hire Frank Vogel, who's a defensive-minded head coach? Yeah, he's gone, but it never made sense to begin with. This would make the new Warriors rotation be this: Steph Curry, Moses Moody, Kevin Durant, Jet Howard, Andrew Wiggins, Gui Santos, Trace Jackson Davis, and Draymond Green. What's the theme there? You do not have a lot of size, but the Warriors the last couple of years have still been one of the smaller teams in the NBA. You would definitely need to bulk up this roster as far as overall talent, depth, and size if you were to make that trade. It's not deep at all for an older group where you're going to have to spell Steph Curry on some nights, Draymond on other nights, and then hope that Kevin Durant can stay healthy. But you got to spell him to conserve him for playoff time. Phoenix faced similar depth issues this past season. And at the start of free agency, I didn't hate what the Suns were able to do as far as filling out their roster. But those depth pieces just did not work out. And that's sometimes what can happen when you make some of these superstar-like trades where you give so much up and you think that a big three is going to be able to carry you, but then you realize that other teams are deeper and in a playoff rotation, You need those bench players to be able to contribute. Look at what's happened with the remaining 4 teams left in the dance. Would you accept this trade to get Kevin Durant back on the Warriors? Simply type A for accept or D for decline. As always, we want you to be a part of the show as much as we are as the host and producer. Smitty, your take. You think the proposal is ridiculous, but why?
I think it's just too much. For a Warriors team that we saw go through injuries all season long and really at its core wasn't super deep with a ton of rookies that needed time to adjust, with a ton of young players who hadn't reached their full potential yet. You're also giving up on all of those young players. You're getting rid of the development that you've had for those guys. And it puts major stress on Curry and Durant to carry the load here as both of them enter, the latter stages of their 30s. And once Curry is done, by the way, we mentioned before, we don't know if Kevin Durant's going to re-sign. He's only under contract for about a year after this as well. So after Curry's done, you're looking at a full-scale rebuild where you have to be at the bottom of the NBA. I know Warriors fans didn't like that one season where they had the second worst record in the NBA and ended up with a number 2 overall pick. You're going to have to go through a couple of those years once Curry is done, once Kevin Durant is done. If you make a deal like this, you're putting all your chips in the basket for 1 or 2 more chances with Durant and Curry at the helm, hoping that can push you to a championship, and there's not a big supporting cast around them.
Yeah, the downside of making a move like this is exactly what Smitty said, where the long-term future might look bleak. The spin zone on that same subject matter is this. You lose Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green to free agency. They leave, they retire. Then you open up a bunch of cap space. And at that point, can you attract some of the marquee free agents to your team? And that's a way to kind of avoid being in the cellar of the NBA, and you can rebuild on the fly if your organization continues to be a destination. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, your go-to spot for the best Warriors coverage year-round, and especially during this offseason in which things are going to heat up.